fear of death. It is the most innate emotion that humans and animals possess. It is our most primal fear, and it is the core of our existence, since much of our actions could be derived from our desire to avoid death. The fear of death is deeply rooted in our survival instinct. It serves as a protective mechanism that alerts us to potential threats, thereby increasing our chances of survival. Fear of death is what motivates us to create narratives regarding life and what comes after it. Myths such as the afterlife, reincarnation, and immortality are common across cultures and time. Fear of death is what drives us to sacrifice personal freedom in exchange for being governed by arbitrary set rules and hierarchical structures, which is why we form clans, tribes, and ultimately society. Only when we stick together, quote-unquote, for the collective good, can we improve our chance of survival. Thomas Hobbes put forward such an idea of a social contract where men agree upon sets of rules and form society, as the natural state of men is anarchic, and life under such a state would be cruel and short. Thus, it is our fear of death that motivates us to clutter in groups and come to an agreement over arbitrary set rules. The fear of death also drives us to live to the best of our capabilities, given the limited time given to us. Kings and emperors of the past attempted to conquer its neighboring states for various purposes, such as politics, economics, and culture. But it is undeniable that vanity plays a massive role in such bloody conflicts. The quote, "Our dead are never dead to us until we have forgotten them," embodies humanity's futile struggle for immortality. We struggle to be remembered, so we do everything within our power to accomplish something great in our lives, foolishly hoping that our achievements can be etched in history books. Only then we can symbolically achieve immortality and escape death. The myth of Sisyphus is one of the many stories and myths regarding humans' desire to escape death. In the myth, Sisyphus defies death twice. First, he chained death, preventing anyone from dying until Ares, the god of war, freed death. The second time, he tricked the gods by asking his wife not to perform traditional burial rites after his death. Once returned to the living world, after persuading the gods to let him return to correct the situation, he refused to return to the underworld. The first emperor of China, Qi Huangdi, is remembered as a king who unified modern China. Even after unification, he spared no effort in turning China into a single dynasty by standardizing language, currency, roads, and measurements upon other things. However, in his later stage of life, he commissioned so-called alchemists to find the elixir of immortality in remote villages and frontier regions. He ended up digesting prescribed mercury in the hope of prolonging his life, only to have it turn him into delirium and cut his life short. Is the death that we fear, or do we fear that we have never truly lived? Our lives compared to those of conquerors of the past or philosophers of antiquity seem to be dull. We clocked into the same job that we disliked, only to look forward to a weekend filled with binge-watching shows. The same day-to-day pattern does not seem to amount to anything that we deem to be astonishing or worth remembering after our death. Then, is the path toward conquering our fear of death is through more accomplishments? Does achieving more or attaining more wealth truly fill the empty hole of our existence? Napoleon Bonaparte was a French military and political leader who rose to become the Emperor of France after his political coup in 1799. Napoleon then went on a relentless conquest of Europe during the late 18th century and the early 19th century, where he expanded the French territory vastly, stretching from Spain to Russia, and yet he spent much of his time on the battlefield. Much of his effort went into conquest and war, but not much was spared for the consolidation of his empire. Did his greed lead to his downfall, or is it the other way around? The short life we live is dedicated to mere survival, although there is nothing inherently wrong with such a task, as it is a noble task in itself. But many of us feel a sense to accomplish more in order to prove that we have lived. We remember Napoleon today as a great military commander, so in essence, he is not dead, as he will forever be etched in our history. Although the fear of death is humanity's innate emotion, not everyone perceives death the same way. Some may have hope that death is not the end, but a beginning of an eternal life or a start of a reincarnation of oneself. Hence, to say that humanity shares the same fear of death is an inaccurate depiction of our species. For instance, Socrates believes that death is a good thing, as death means either one of two things. First, death could mean the total annihilation of oneself, where we enter a dreamless sleep. This is good, because our most pleasant nights, even for a king, are nights where we slept without having a dream. As then, all of eternity is nothing but a single night. Second, death would mean the relocation of our souls from earth to the true jury in Hades, where we will be surrounded by Orpheus and Musaeus, Hesiod and Homer in the underworld. Socrates stated that death should not be dreaded, but instead be welcomed, because those who had lived a moral and virtuous life simply should not have any fear. Although humanity's perception of death and what it entails differ from time, culture, and belief, what unites us is the agreement that death is approaching, and is approaching us quickly. Seneca said it is not that we do not have enough time on earth, but we waste much of it. This is a statement that many, especially in the modern world filled with distractions, can agree on. Many of us have become complacent to the ease and comfort of modern life that we no longer seek to live. We fill our days with mindless tasks, and if any boredom arises, we quickly shut it down through various forms of entertainment. Is this a life truly lived to the fullest? A life filled with nothing but distractions and numbness of the brain? In his meditation, Marcus Aurelius noted, "Life is short. That's all there is to say. Get what you can from the present, thoughtfully, justly." Our life is indeed short. We tend to forget the limited time that we have on this earth as we go through our day. Only when we stop once in a while and look around can we truly appreciate our life, not because it is filled with wonders, but because it is limited. Only when it is limited can we direct our focus on what truly matters and reject the rest, because one day death will be at our front door and we are forced to face the reality of nature. The day when we return to dust and be forgotten will soon approach us. Each day we get up from our sleep means one day death creeps closer to us. So why must we complain or condemn our days? The day at hand is hard, but we must also appreciate the fact that we receive an additional day to live, which many of us take for granted. The majority of us have never given much thought regarding death because we are not afraid of it. We are unafraid of it because our life has been unremarkable enough to think that death is not something to fear. We do not fear death because many of us have slipped into nihilism and long for the day when we cease to exist. Don't get this statement wrong. I do not advocate for suicide, but the other way around, to dive deep inside ourselves and find what is worth living for. According to Jean-Paul Sartre, humans are cursed with freedom, but that freedom usually leads us to experience anguish. Thus, we should not dwell on how unremarkable our past is, but look toward the future with a sense of optimism, because we have been given unlimited freedom to make any decisions we wish. Only then can we accept life.